and welcome to Old School, a podcast from the Old Davie School Historical Museum. I'm Kim, the education director here, and fun fact, I first came to the Old Davie School when I was looking for a wedding venue. After we booked the wedding here, I asked about internships, and here we are celebrating 2 anniversaries 7 years later. Weddings in Davie used to include a special tradition called a Shivaree. We'll learn more about the history of Shivarees and hear more about that experience firsthand from some of our pioneers. A Shivaree is a tradition that supposedly goes back all the way to the Middle Ages, and they were popular across frontier America in the 1800s and into the early 20th century. The evening of the wedding, people would gather together for the Shivaree and wait for the married couple to turn out the lights. The Shivaree party would converge on the home of the newlywed couple and bang pots, honk horns, ring bells, sing, yell, get the attention of the couple, and sometimes they would raid their home, and here in Davie, the groom would be kidnapped and thrown into the canal. The very first Shivaree took place on the wedding night of William Alfred and Anna Dolores Griffin in May 1913. I came across a really neat video this week from the 1991 Orange Blossom Festival, where they had a speaker's corner with some of the earliest pioneers, some of the people who came in 1910, 1920 to Davie, and they told their stories. This was held in a tent on Orange Drive during the middle of the festival, so you'll hear some of that background noise and music, but here's Jack Griffin telling his stories about Shivarees in Davie.
Helen Shaw married a boy, and and so what you do, you wait, you gather someplace, and they're not supposed to know this. And so they be in bed, we wait till about 9, 10 o'clock, the lights goes out or everything, and then we go slip up to the window and turn that horn loose. Without horn enough to raise anybody, that'd raise the dead. So we always do that when they're not expecting it. But this time we took Helen Shaw's husband, and Ellen Shaw, and we throwed him overboard right over here across the canal, and we got him out, and he got down, and he didn't have no pocketbook. He lost his money. All the money he was going on his honeymoon on was lost. So we took flashlights and went back, and the canal had a current in it then, and we all went down along the canal bank, and we found that pocketbook just hanging by the edge of a rock. Just barely was on that rock. And we saved the day on that. And then when my brother got Shivaree, they throwed him overboard right in front of Mr. Sterling's house, and liked to kill him because there wasn't much water in the canal. They liked to kill him. And then we took him to Lauderdale and put him in jail. Now, in order to get him out of jail, his wife's brother, was a jailer. She had to come down there with a penny, not 5 pennies, but 1 penny, and to get him out. And I think Kenneth King was in on that. We put him in jail, and I never will forget that. The dirtiest place I've ever been, trying to get that boy behind them bars. And it was the dirtiest place I've ever seen. But we did have a good time. They Shivareed my mother. They Shivareed Burton Sewell. They Shivareed Burton Sewell about a year after he got married, and throwed him overboard off the bridge down there. And then his wife got up and she jumped overboard. This was 12 o'clock at night.
Carl Griffin wrote about a few of these Shivarees in town, and he said, "These were times when people brought drinks and cookies for these parties, or they went and bought some. When Lenny Carson Griffin married George Price, no refreshments were prepared, so George Price got George Anderson to open his store so they could have something to eat and drink. When Raynold Saar, who was born in Davie in 1914, married Althea Anapu on a Friday in 1932, they hadn't kept any food or drinks for a Shivaree, thinking that they would be bombarded the next night on a Saturday. But here's his Shivaree story.
We got married on August the 12th and happened to be on a Friday in the afternoon. And Judge Anderson was the one that didn't marry us. But she was talking about Judge Anderson. And anyway, we came home. And we had in mind, to get something for the Shivaree. But they'd never had it on Saturday because everybody went to town and shop on Saturday. But lo and behold, they had it Friday night. And Anderson, lucky, he opened up and brought us some cold drinks. And Heiss, he bought a bunch of beer, and they had a good time, but they had a hard time trying to catch me because I went on the roof. Because just before then, they threw that guy overboard and got married, and his wife, and she lost her ring. And the Shivaree, in case you've never encountered it, they had an old siren that Mr. Rubinson had, and they'd walk down the street with a whole bunch and blow on that siren. And of course, when they got to the house, why, that was it. They ran all through it and made themselves at home, and they just had a big time. That was the idea of the whole thing.
Carl Griffin also wrote that when Walter Ford was married and they took him down to the canal, he got out on the big diving board and started taking off his clothes. The men would not let him do that, so they pushed him in. When Dave Bentley was thrown in the canal, his wife, Helen Doan Bentley, jumped in after him and they swam across the canal together. I haven't heard much of this tradition continuing into the 21st century, but do you have any wedding traditions? We have a beautiful wedding venue here, and so if you're looking to hold that kind of event, please give us a call at 954-797-1044 or email us at events@olddavieschool.org. Tell us about those wedding traditions on our Facebook or on our Instagram. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take care of each other.